what is required and kind of what is the timeline, and do I have the resources to pay my bills, I guess, to put it very, frankly, before this movie starts to generate money. Is there money for development?
This is Truly Independent, a show that demystifies the indie film journey by documenting the process of releasing independent films in theaters. Each week, Garrett Batty and I, Darren Smith, will update you on our journey, bringing guests to share their insights into the process and answer your questions. All right, Garrett, how's it going, man?
Good. Darren, how are you?
Dude, I'm so good. You may not know this, but we're recording today on my birthday. So
On your
I'm very
birthday.
happy to be here.
Happy.
I don't know that I'd rather be doing anything else on my birthday.
I had a note yesterday. It was like, okay, tomorrow's Darren's birthday. Tomorrow's Darren's birthday. So I think when I texted you about recording today, I was like, oh, tentative. Well, happy birthday.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Any
It's
any fun plans? Any fun
we
activities?
started a new tradition maybe with my wife April's birthday back in March, and we just had each of our three boys choose something that she might like, and so we went like shopping for a piece of jewelry, and we went and got her chocolate, and we went and saw a movie or something like that, and she
Oh, fun.
loved it because it was very thoughtful and very personal to each of them and what they like to do with her. And so it was really cool. So I think they're repeating that today. So once kids are home at like 3:15, we're gonna go out. I don't know what the plans are, but there are plans, and so I will basically be in tow and excited to experience all that. It's really cool when your kids are old enough to kind of take the lead on those things.
Fun. Well, good. Well, I hope it's an enjoyable day.
Yeah, thank you. So we are kicking off season 2 of Truly Independent. Like that feels like a huge milestone.
Yeah, that I love that, and we've talked at length about what we want to do for this season. Our last one kind of, I mean, had a pretty built-in outline because we were releasing two movies. So season one was all about releasing The Carpenter on as many screens. Our goal was 600 screens, and then a couple episodes in, we said we're going to release Faith of Angels as well, and that was the journey of those 24, 25 episodes. And
Yeah.
so, where are we? Are we 25? Is this episode 25?
I lost count. We're in the low
So
mid 20s.
kicking
Yeah.
So kicking
So
off this season, we're going to focus on the next phase, I guess, which is development. We like rinse and repeat. Here we go.
yeah, we're really excited to dive into development, to creating pitch decks, to raising financing, to building your team and finding your partners. And hopefully we listen to our own advice and the advice of our amazing guests from season 1. And we start thinking about the marketing and the distribution in the same breath as the ideation and the development and the financing. And so it's going to be fun to document it. Both of us are working on the next thing. And so we're really going to be able to give a hands-on and first-person perspective of, hey, I just had a meeting and this is how the pitch went, or whatever it might be. So it's exciting to be able to do it in real time and to document these things. And as we say in our subtitle, we're demystifying the indie film journey. And that's what this season is going to be about.
And I'm hopeful that our listeners, because we've had some great comments and great thoughts and questions submitted, about distribution. And I'm hopeful now that that group of filmmakers that are often asking about, you know, just how do you get started? What do you do? How do you get started as a filmmaker? That this will be valuable to them as well, whether you're a first time filmmaker or a repeat offender and want to change things up a little bit or want to have a different voice as far as ideas on where to start and how to develop. This will be very helpful. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, it may seem weird to some people who've followed along that we kind of picked up at the end, right? If you've got 3 sections of like pre-production, the development, financing, all the stuff we're going to do in this season, and then you have production and post, and then you have distribution and marketing. We started with the third one because that's what we were doing. But my hope is that, I definitely plan on going through at least 3 seasons because we got to get through whatever our next project is, whether it's together or separate, that we're covering production and post. But that's a really cool little like film school supplement to say, here's two filmmakers that went through the entire process and documented it. So today we're going to kick off with a question that came up a lot over last season, but we never didn't really answer it because it wasn't the right time or context to be talking about ideation. And so you've had a lot of people, and I've had people both, through the podcast and outside of it as we were doing premieres. They always ask, "What's next? What are you working on?" And then the follow up is, "Well, how do you choose? Like, you have a lot of ideas. How do you pick one?" And that is a great question that we're going to tackle today. So, Garrett, how do you pick a project? How do you pick your next one?
Yeah, it is a great question and one that comes up always, in every screening or whatever it is. It's what's next? What do you do? And then there's also an abundance of stories out there. Not only are people saying what's next, we say, hey, will you look at this for your next project? Will you look at this? I wish that there were just an easy way to choose. Uh, I'm grateful that there are so many ideas and many options. Um, and I guess I guess there are multiple ways to choose. So it depends on where I am. I mean, right now, um, I'm in the place where we've got these two movies in theaters. I want to be able to focus on the post release of those. Um, so the next project I choose has to be able to allow me a little bit of time to be able to balance between that. I can't just jump into a full time, gig right now. And and I have to be interested in it. There are stories out there, great movies, and people talking to me about different movies that I am not the right director for. And I think acknowledging that is important to say, look, if it's about story, if it's about the best opportunity for this story to succeed, perhaps somebody else is better, has a better audience for that, or is more qualified, has more experience in doing that. Whereas I might be very excited about the movie or the story and seeing it happen. Um, I think there's an acknowledgement of perhaps I can help connect them with a more a director or a producing team that could get their vision of that movie done.
I've got two things I want to add to that, or at least how I approach it, because I'm coming from the producer side. I'm generally not coming up with an idea and then diving into writing a script like you would be, or finding a
Yeah.
script and saying, I'm going to direct, this is what I'm going to put my name on. So I'm coming at it from maybe more of a business decision. I will say overall, like the big umbrella, I think every filmmaker needs to have some sort of thesis or some sort of general, this is the type of movie I make. It doesn't mean genre necessarily. It doesn't mean like PG or PG-13 or, but the one I've been using is films that change people for good or for the better. And that could be a comedy or a business thriller or an adventure movie. It doesn't have to be a faith-based drama. But that's, movies that I want to be able to watch with my kids. That's what I'm talking about here. So I think every filmmaker needs that going in, but as a producer, the two things I look for, because I'm getting sent scripts all the time, I'm posting about all the work we're doing, and people see me as a producer that's active in the industry right now. So I get sent a lot of cold DMs and a lot of cold emails that are just like, hey, here's my script. Can you read it? And I go, nope, because I don't want to read your script. But when there is a relationship there, and I do take a look at a script, the two things I look for are one, is there leverage somewhere? Can I look at the filmmaker or the story or the location or the set pieces or the actors or whatever it might be? Can I find some leverage in there, which means I can make this movie for less than it would cost someone else? That's one way of looking at leverage. Do I have access to something that makes it where I'm the only one who could do this way? So leverage. And then the second one is more nebulous, which is it a movie I feel like I have to make? And I've read a lot of good scripts that are well written and well executed, and the director has a pedigree and has experience and has clout and has past films. And I go, I don't feel like I have to make this movie. I don't feel like it's a movie that if it didn't exist in the world, I would be super sad about. That doesn't mean it's bad. It just means I don't feel that tug, that internal pull of like I have to make this movie, which I felt with The Carpenter, which I felt with Faith of Angels probably even more so. And that's kind of my two-pronged metric for choosing a project. Does it have leverage, and does it feel like a project I have to make?
Darren, how much of that decision also, well, two questions, right?
Yeah.
One, I want to know what that feels like, oh, that internal tug, like how would you describe that? And then also separately, how much is financially driven? How much, I'm saying, hey, this may or not be what you feel like you have to make, but here's a check for an amount to just at least take a look at it and develop it.
Yeah. Well, I'll answer the financial aspect first. I've had people come up to me and talk about 30 and 40 million dollar independent films. And I basically told them that's not a thing. And they said, "Well, we want it to be a thing." I said, "Great, but like show me a single independent like non-studio or non-Lionsgate A24 Neon focus features like show me an independent movie that's been that cost 30 plus $1 million to make that made its money back in theaters, and you can't. There aren't, because they're studio movies or they're mini majors. So my kind of range right now is like $1 to $4 million, and that's what I'm looking at. So if it's big sci-fi action set pieces, lots of visual effects, that's outside of my realm of what I could do and help people with right now. Do I want to get there? I don't know. I like telling stories. I don't really care if it has visual effects or not, or if it's set in the future or on another planet. Like if we can do it for 4 million, let's do it. So I do think about like the financial part is part of the leverage piece. Can I make money on this movie? Can I do it profitably? Because to me, as a producer who's raising money, who's going to be managing money, I need to make sure that it's profitable, because profit equals permission, like we've talked about in the past. I want to keep doing more and more and more movies. If I finance a $4 million movie that only makes 400,000, I can't make another movie, right? So it's certainly part of it. Short version of my answer for what does that feel like? It feels like I have to take action right now. Let me give you a great small example. There's a friend of ours, mutual friend of ours, Eric Snyder, who did movie reviews and is a comedy writer and has done I don't know about stand up, but he's done a lot of improv. And he wrote these things years ago where he was talking about like what would the script look like if you were in the development room at Disney for the movie Maleficent. Like what would
Yeah, the
that
pitch, what's the pitch look like, right?
the pitch, right? So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I remember reading the one he did for Maleficent and going, I have to make this. I have to shoot this as a YouTube short. And I had a business partner at the time. We were doing YouTube stuff all the time. So I was like, Alan, you have to direct this. I need to produce it. We need to make this like next week, because Maleficent was coming out that weekend. I was like, if we could get this out the same weekend as the movie, like it could do 1 million views kind of thing, right? We didn't end up getting it out opening weekend, but I think it was week 2, and it's got tens of thousands of views. But like from the moment I read it, I started taking action on turning it into a thing that needed to exist. It feels like that. It's like I see it and it has to happen right now, and I start taking action. I start making phone calls, sending emails, talking to people. What do you think about this idea? And that's what it feels like. I have to do something right now to make it take that first step.
Okay, that's helpful. That's interesting. I'm kind of reviewing my past week and like these meetings that I've been in, as far as with different either distributors or independent, people that have stories, and trying to think, okay, where I've spent my time or what has helped me feel like, okay, this could potentially be my next project. I was in a pitch meeting and I pitched half a dozen. I had two series, two narrative series, two docu series, and two features, right? And just kind of talking like, what was it about them that even made the list? Um, and I think that part of me, what I try to consider is certainly that feeling of, hey, this is something I want to make, but that might exist on multiple projects, and then you start to run out of time. Like, oh, I feel like I have to do this right now. And if you do that with three or four projects, you run out of time. Another thing is, do I have the resources to make this? Like, um, do I even have the resources to develop it? Like if I'm going to put this series on the list that I want to attach myself to and really put energy and focus into it, what is the what is required and kind of what is the timeline, and do I have the resources to pay my bills, I guess, to put it very, frankly, before this movie starts to generate money? Is there money for development? Like that's something that I take into consideration. I just said yes to a project yesterday. This project fit something that I'm interested, a topic that I'm interested in. Um, the person, we had a face to face meeting, and it's the first time I met this individual. We've communicated via email a couple of times, but they seem very like the type of person I'd like to work with. Very very agreeable and collaborative and supportive. We had similar interests, and then thirdly, they offered some money to help put together and develop the movie. So that suddenly, as an independent filmmaker, you know, that those are three positives that say, okay, that could be a project I'd like to spend my time on.
Yeah. And you bring up the tension that we often feel, which is when you say yes to one project, that often means you're saying no to all the others. And you just listed off 6 projects that are going to get a no, or 5 of them are going to get a no for right now. Maybe it's not a no, it's a not yet, or you're next. But that can be hard and sometimes even like debilitating for creative people to say, well, how do I pick a favorite child of mine? You don't. You give each of them time when they need it. And if
When
it,
they need it, right?
yeah. So I think it comes like you have to realize that. And that's kind of life in a nutshell. Like you'd never get both things that you want. Like there's always going to be, well, I want to do this and this. Well, you can't. So which one do you want to do now? But I want both. Well, that's not an option. So which one do you want to do now? And it sounds at times like talking to a 7-year-old and helping them realize that this is life. Like life is about how do you handle not getting what you want all the time? How do you handle the choice between 2 good choices or even 2 bad choices? That's a lot of what life is about. And so it applies here as well, where you're saying, okay, I love all of these, but because of leverage, because of resources, because of connections, because of money, because of an opportunity that popped up, I'm going to choose this one. And to me, I think a lot of those things happen outside of our control, right? Someone who found you and picked you and said, I want you to help develop this. You didn't make that happen. It came into your life. And if we kind of expand outside of ourselves a little bit and think bigger, maybe there's someone else that's helping put things in your path because those things need to be made now. I certainly felt that way about the Carpenter and Faith of Angels. And so I said yes to them immediately because it was so clear that I didn't do anything to get on Carpenter other than live my life. And you called and said, please come do this with me. I said, yes, absolutely. So when those things happen, that certainly is a big, big part of the decision making process, which is, oh, maybe this is what I should be doing right now. Maybe this is what I'm meant to be doing right now, because it will create opportunities to make all of the other projects even easier once this one's done.
Yeah, I mean, now we're getting into like the philosophical side of things and like saying,
Mhm.
okay, what is, do we live the law of abundance? We say, look, there will always be options. There will always be, um, if we're pursuing our passion, we're pursuing what we feel driven to do and born to do. Um, there will be a guiding hand that kind of gives us these opportunities that fall into our paths. So that's one way of thinking, and certainly has been evident on past projects. But I do agree with you that there is that tension as well of like, well, what happens today when somebody calls and says, "Hey, I've got a project and here's a check. Can you develop this?" And now we've got two competing interests, and so yeah, I don't know. It's a hard decision, and again, one I'm very very grateful for. Right,
Mhm.
20 years ago, I'd have loved any phone call to say, "Hey, I don't have any money or anything, but would you like to look at this?" And I think those calls will always exist. So, have we answered the question? How do we how do we decide on our next project?
Well, I think part of the answer is that there is no checklist. There's no process that exists that works for everybody, and it's going to be different for everyone. But it made me think of this. There's a video online of Ira Glass talking about the idea of taste. And early in your career, it feels like everything you make sucks because you see the gap between where you are and the kind of art you want to create, and it's this really, really big gap. But as you progress along in your career, you kind of refine your taste, and your taste gets better, and you can start going, oh, if I do more of this, maybe that makes my projects better. And I think that plays in somehow to the decisions that we make, right? The first two projects that I produced were not necessarily ones that I would have chosen content wise, but I wanted the opportunity to be a producer. Like, I wanted the gig, I wanted the credit, I wanted to have the experience, and I wanted to do it. And so I said yes, knowing that, well, maybe these aren't the ones that I want to be remembered by. I'm still proud of the work that we did and the experience we gave people that worked on the movie, but I'm definitely, the two movies we've done together are more in alignment with the kind of projects I want to be doing in the future, because my kids wanted to bring their friends to the premieres. Like, to me,
Yeah.
that was the ultimate experience. I've never shared this, but like a week after, or no, the day after the Carpenter premiere, my 13-year-old son texts me out of the blue, like unprovoked, and says, "Dad, it was so amazing to be at the movie. Congrats on that. And thank you for letting us be a part of it with you." And like, I
Mm.
literally broke down crying at my desk
Yeah.
because, as we all do, I always am asking myself, am I a good dad? Am I doing enough? Like, all those questions are always just kind of humming in the back of my mind. And to have that happen was amazing. But that same son has not seen the first two movies that I've produced, even though he was in the second one I produced. He hasn't seen
Yeah.
it. So I want that. I want that experience. And I got off track where I was talking about, but this Ira Glass video, I think the more you refine your taste, the more that will help inform the kind of projects you want to make, which actually makes it easier to choose your next project, because you can go, oh, this is what I want to make, instead of just saying yes to the next paycheck that comes through, which isn't always a bad thing. I'm not trying to say it's bad to just say yes to money, but when you have, like you have, created the opportunity, the scenario where you're oversubscribed, you've got competing investors or competing projects that are trying to get your time and attention for the next year, that's a great place to be in. And then you can go back to, what are your values? What is your taste? What's pulling at you? And that makes the decision hopefully a little easier.
I think okay, a couple of things come to mind while you were talking, and this might be a shifting gears. Here are some things that have popped in that you don't want to do, that I don't want to do, that we've learned not to do, as far as choosing your next project. One, in the development stage, in these early stages, you have no idea which project is going to make it to pre-production or even production, right? I mean, we developed the Carpenter for years and years, right? So if I would have gotten that call 10 years ago when the Krebs family called and said, "Hey, we don't know who you are. We want you to write a script. Would you do that?" If I go onto like Facebook and say, "Next project, film live, hashtag, Carpenter coming soon," that would have been terrible. I did 5 other films from the time that they called to the time we released The Carpenter.
Crazy.
As a filmmaker, be mindful that development is is an ongoing phase, and development does not equal pre-production and production,
Hmm.
right? I'm
Yeah.
not even maybe we're not even at that point of how do you choose your next project. It's like, hey, you develop as much as you can on as many as you can, and when one kicks off, that's your next project. It's a pretty easy decision.
Yeah. I want to throw in one into the hat there of like what to not do. I give this advice to writers all the time, screenwriters especially, because they get super passionate about one idea and they spend a year plus writing a screenplay, refining it, getting it reviewed, paying for readers to give feedback, doing table reads, like just honing in that one project before ever even asking if anyone's interested in it. And so
Yep.
I've told a lot of writers, don't send me a screenplay, send me a treatment. Show me that you can tell a compelling story in 15 pages in a narrative structure and format rather than the screenplay format, which is a blueprint for making a movie. It's not meant to be read, it's meant to be produced, right? So tell me what the story is. And you can tell the story in a 15-page treatment or a one-page synopsis or a one-sentence log line. And so I always tell writers, prioritize the smaller versions of that. Refine the idea to where it's so punchy in a single sentence or two that when you tell it to people that are your initial audience, your investors, your development partners, your distributors, your whoever else you're working with, when you say, here's the one sentence pitch, they light up and they go, oh my gosh, I have to have that. I learned this from writing a screenplay and realizing that like it wasn't good enough as a screenplay to like move the project forward. But when I pitched the idea to an executive producer, her instant reaction was, have you told anyone else about this? And I said, no. She's like, good, don't. I want it. Like, I will fund this.
Yeah.
I will help you produce it. I'll help you develop it. I'll help find I'm already thinking about this director and this person. So what happened on her end? She started taking action, like we were talking about earlier. And she goes, I
Yeah,
already
felt
want
like
to
she had
connect
to make
you.
it.
Yeah. She realized she had to make it. We haven't made it yet. It's been almost 8 years or something. But that emotion was like, oh, I've got something here. And so now it's worth
Yeah,
spending more time on developing the script and the team and putting it all together because I have someone who can help develop it and finance it. Great. Then I'll move forward with that one. But I would the wrong way to do it, I think, is to spend years developing and writing and refining without even knowing that it's someone wants it.
I agree 100%, Darren. And I mean, that should be our first point of this podcast is like, don't overwork the idea. Don't waste time in over developing. If you're writing a script and then hoping people will like it, that's not a good use of time. Um, it, and that's just coming from having done that before, right?
Mhm.
Written a script, and I realized one, I wrote beyond my resources. Like I wrote a multi-million-dollar movie for my first script, and then I thought I don't have the resources to make this. And if I were to pitch that, no one's going to hire me to make this. Like even a studio that loves the idea, they're not going to say, "Great, you've never made a movie before. I want you to make this." So don't write beyond your resources, and don't even write your script. Like start small, and just as you've said, I guess I don't need to rehash it.
Yeah.
Um, what we've learned, one of the things that we've learned on our first season, meeting with distributors and things like that, is distributors are now funding and financing and helping get funds for developing. They want to be involved from the beginning or early on. And so that pitch, those six ideas that I'm pitching, I need to be taking those to different distributors. And not only that, but I mean, I sat with a distributor last week with this, here's these six stories. And first I asked, what are you working on? Like, what are you looking for? What types of stories, what elements? And I just let him talk for half an hour on the different, who his audience was. So look, if there's opportunities for me to help you, if you need production services or a director to develop some of these ideas, you know, again, that should be a candidate for my next project.
I think we've said a lot of good things for people that listen to our show here today. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
this is going to be an ongoing discussion, and whatever questions came up for you as you're listening, shoot us an email and let us know what questions you have because that's what this next season's about: pitching and developing and taking meetings and how do you do all this stuff. We're going to be talking about all of it, but I think that's a great kicking off point for this season. Choosing an idea, it all starts with the story, right? And so if you can find one that helps people take action, that pulls people in, that makes people want to collaborate and start working together, that's a pretty good sign. Garrett, I think I would love to keep looking at box office because it's one of our favorite things to do. And maybe we can celebrate some other independent filmmakers. It's such an interesting month right now. Like, I'm looking at the box office for this last weekend, November 8th through 10th. Venom, The Last Dance, is still number one 3 weeks in a row because nothing else has come out that's bigger than that. Heretic came out this week to an $11 million take. And then Best Christmas Pageant Ever, our friends that put that movie together, $10 million take, almost 11. Really
Good job,
great.
chat.
Yeah,
Congrats.
really great opening. 3,000 screens, 3,500 per screen average, the number 3 movie. And they missed it by like 300 grand or 250 grand. Like, they barely missed that number 2 spot. So congrats to them. That's massive. And they had the second highest per screen average this week. So amazing, amazing, amazing. Let's see. So if we scroll down, I just want to reinforce this thing that I've been saying for weeks now. When you have a low number one, this was 15, almost 16 million was the number one movie. So the number 10 spot is really high, 1.6 million for Terrifier 3, which is just killing it. $53 million for that little $2 million indie that had a $500,000 marketing budget. Like, come on, killing it. They're still on 1,500 screens in their 5th week. Like, that's amazing. But do we have any indies this week that came out that we should kind of celebrate?
Well, I mean, it started as an indie, that Best Christmas Pageant Ever,
Mhm.
but Chet Thomas and his producing partner have just done incredible as far as getting that to be, picked up and recognized. And they hired a name director and in Dallas Jenkins, and so it's probably it doesn't count as an indie. But yeah, man, Vertical Entertainment released Elevation.
Mhm.
I don't. Anyway,
Yeah, don't know much
that top
about that
10.
project, but single father and 2 women venture from the safety of their homes to face monstrous creatures to save the life of a young boy. So 1,400 screens, they just missed the and that's a good take. 1.2 million, like in any big weekend, that would be a number 10 or a number 8 film, but they just missed the top 10. But it's so, like, I love seeing this. If you go along, if you're on Box Office Mojo, like, there's a lot of indies that are out right now. Cineverse, Vertical Entertainment, Roadside Attractions, Viva Pictures, Samuel Goldwyn, Mubi, IFC Films, like Blue Fox Entertainment. There's so many. That's just in the top 25. And then you get to ours, The Carpenter, at number 30, Purdy Distribution. It's
Yeah.
pretty awesome that things are
Scroll down a
still.
little later. You got Susan Tuckett Media
Yep,
still
6
hanging
Days
in
in
there with
August is still there. Um, yeah, it's just
fun.
really cool to see so many films that are coming out from indies. I think we're going to see more and more of that as we go along. Well, very, very cool. I'm excited for another season of this show. Here's an ask for the audience. If you like this show, will you tell a friend? Will you just share it online? Share your favorite episode from season 1. Put it on Instagram or YouTube or Facebook or wherever you spend time online. Tell your friends about it. We'd love to reach more people with this show, and that helps. Leave a review, leave a comment wherever you listen to the show or watch the show. And again, if you go over to 3coinpro.com/podcast, you can send us a message. So you can send us a review or you could send us a question and we can answer it on the show.
Great, good ask. And then also sponsors. We're looking for new sponsors, so we'll give you a nice shout out throughout the season if that's something that your business or company is looking for.
Yeah, amazing.
But yeah, share it and like it and subscribe and do all those wonderful things.
Amazing. Man, it's good to see you. I'm excited for what's next. We neither of us know yet, and so we're in this kind of limbo moment of we're pitching and we're developing and we're working on the next thing, but we don't know yet, and that's going to be exciting to reveal and to move forward on this season.
Yeah, I think by the end of the season, if we were to say that here's a goal, by the end of the season, we'll be in pre-pro on our next projects.
There you go. And that's season 3, pre-pro and production. Thank you for listening to this episode of Truly Independent. To join us on the journey, be notified of new episodes and screenings, and ask us questions about today's episode, head over to 3coinpro.com/podcast and put in your name and an email address. If you're a fan of the show, please leave us a review on your favorite podcast app and be sure to share this episode with a friend. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week. Our intro and outro music is Election Time by Kjartan Abel.